Welcome, welcome. Bienvenidos. Ahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. I am Phillip Bannowsky, and I want to welcome you, and first, I want to share with you some excerpts from a cycle of poems I've written that's called Jacobo the Turko, a novel in verse. As well, I will speak a little about the process and events associated with the poem, but not too much. I draw upon my experiences living and teaching with my wife, Joan French, in Ecuador and Lebanon, as well as my 31 years on the assembly line, to write an act of human solidarity. In short, this is a story of a youth from the village of Peguche, Ecuador, mother indigenous Otavalo, father a fourth generation Lebanese, who seeks the American dream working on the beaches of Rehoboth, Delaware, gets deported to Lebanon, where he has never been, and eventually lands in Guantanamo prison. Other characters, a U.S. commando, an African-American artist, his teenage ward, a Gujarati shopkeeper, his Chinese ship supervisor, a Palestinian exile, Lebanese laundry owner, a youthful Taliban, and Jacobo's parents are similarly swept in the world currents of our time, seeking fortune, fleeing peril, or taken in bondage. I'd like to begin with my epigraph for this entire work. It's from Daniel Bagram, the late Daniel Bagram, that died just a few months ago. A great revolutionary pacifist priest, Jesuit priest. And he said, in times of crisis, the real question is, how am I like others? To explore the question is to form communities of survival or of sacrifice. Jacobo's father, Elias Bitar the Phoenician. Pilgrims crowd my pools to soak their ailments in my waters. Today's minerals, chloratos 151, magnesio 67.9, and sulfatos a salutary 1702 micrograms per holy liter. The data promise the dose, but only the date changes. We've done well since my grandfather's father pissed on his merchandise for the insurance in Guayaquil. Why did he abandon the olives and persimmon of Mount Lebanon to escape the Druze, the Ottoman Turkos? He didn't escape the name. Better than be a monkey. Why does any son of 100 generations escape from anywhere that was home? The sea's far shore was just another port on the same bay, another branch of the same trade to my Phoenicians' forebears. Why dream of fathers and sons, grandfathers and bisabuelos, Phoenician genes dissolved in oceans of time? Maktub, say the Mohammedans, it is written in water. From waters we are born, and to waters we return. And I'll read for you a few poems dealing with Jacobo's time in Delaware. We'll trace it from the time when he first runs into trouble after working in a Rehoboth Beach pizza and buffalo chicken wings joint, through his time working at a chicken plant, working for a marijuana farmer from Wilmington named Uncle Pops, and a donut shop owned by a Gujarati immigrant, all while falling in love with Uncle Pop's ward, Layla, and dodging immigration control enforcement, ICE, catching chickens. Any of you speak English? Said to the leftover Mexicans and me, waiting for work, baked by day and stale by nightfall, like buffalo wings and pizzas I'd made all summer in Rehoboth on a J1 visa. The Russians stole my passport, pay, and ticket home, and here I was, hungry. But now Our Lady saved the day. My English overflowed with accents I'd taken with the tips. Collegiate, beach bum, grandma six-pack, Joe. Yes, sir, I am the man. Yes, you are. And I was in the van, on the floor, propping myself with palms and slick straw about the boots of 4 blacks already aboard. You like chicken, the boss man asked. You bet I do. And the black man laughed. Like a lone star in the manure firmament that was the warehouse, a single light bulb shone on thousands of white chickens across a sea of dark dirt. They roiled softly like expiring foam, plucking mild reproaches at our approach. A giant goosenecked machine with a face of rubber snakes sat menacingly by, the automated chicken catcher, sidelined for repairs. We would catch the chickens. Mamacita, in the mornings under misted Imbabura, would slip her padded hands beneath the hen, cradled it sweetly while cooing Quechua words of love, hide with one hand its eyes from her little act of shame, and grasp at like a chain whip of shoulder, elbow, wrist, and neck. Ah, halal is not so merciful. Let's work, Jose. One waded into the chicken surf to hook 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of chicken legs between his knuckles, fling them like feather dusters into a wire shelf, shake them to the rear and reload. It looked easy. The chickens, too surprised to be undocile to my comrades, fought me like gamecocks, leapt accusing from sticking shells and left them empty when the forklift came. Put some ass into it, Jose, we ain't going to carry you. Behind is always twice the work. Ahead, you pass the bottle. When I finally got a sip, it filled the pores of my thirsty bones with grace. Thanks. My name's Jacobo. Call me Pea-Patch, Jose. Work here always? Nah, we're scabs. Union in, get an auto-catch chicken catcher. Auto-catcher break, hire scabs and wetbacks. That's why they call America the land of opportunity. And that was true, since the boss man fed me cheese and mayo sandwiches and offered me a job cutting wings from chickens, which Pea-Patch would not do. Shit, my people did this shit for 400 years. Your turn now, Jose. Had Our Lady, who had lifted me from the river of misfortune, now dropped me in the mountain's fire? Flash picture. Jacobo gets the good job. I spent the first 2 weeks disjointing wings. Among 100 helmeted and plastic-aproned associates, they called us, arranged on files either side of several ringing chicken disassembly lines, I would crimp my right wrist up to grip the slimy knife handle with the most delicate muscles of my thumb and middle finger. Then, with index atop the blade, I'd stab through the shoulder while yanking the wing down with my other hand, flip the net back with the blade, and rotate the bird on its conical pedestal to slice and yank the other wing. Next down the line, others made the final cuts to render the wings pretty much the way they looked before they're dredged, deep-fried, saturated, gory sauce, and served up to beach bums who never gave my aching finger joints and wrists a second thought. Next down the line, others made the final cuts to render the wings pretty much the way they look when they're dredged, deep-fried, saturated with gory sauce, and served up to beach bums. I sort of missed the point. Where's the second thought? Okay. Each morning I woke with fingers stiff, every point of rotation locked like dried-out water wheel back home in Peguche. At the last station on this line was the good job. No knives. By the time the bird got there, there were the breasts. Glistening gray-pink mounds and pimple yellow sacks, already cut loose and dangling by a thread of sinew or skin. All it took was a little tug and they dropped to the weight conveyor. Tug, drop. Tug, drop. That's for me. I told the foreman that Friday morning and he said, okay. This was the life. Half the work, twice the time to breathe. No more worrying when I get my yank and slice backwards and stab that blade into my thumb joint before I felt it drive clean through, spoiling the whole line of chickens with pulsing spurts of blood. I'd found my home in the American food chain, and as I continued tugging and dropping, I began to contemplate the mechanized wonder of automated chicken catchers, controlled atmosphere stunning, conveyor chains with chickens in shackles, plugging machines, and systematic dismembering and packaging for the market, and a miracle of efficiently distributed labor, except for my job, which was easy and left me half the time to daydream. The only annoyance was a negligible twinge beneath my forearm. After lunch, the rhythm became intoxicating, and I had a vision, like a sort of mandala that monks make with colored sand. Golden streams spread from the spark of creation out to a web of stardust evolving into elements and galaxies, blue and magenta, spinning planets with drifting continents, braided rivers, and living beings, microbial to mammal, trade routes of sailors, escape routes, and after an hour, that negligible twinge had turned into an intensifying burn driven farther up both forearms with each tug and drop, but I kept my head at the mandala, where my co-workers from Mexico and Guatemala traveled atop rail cars through deserts or packed in U-Hauls along Interstate 5, while overhead were migration paths of flying birds that divided into the species that cluck and scratch the ground and get gathered up by chicken catchers from Ecuador and served up to beach bums watching football on television networks, broadcasting through transoceanic cables and satellite signals and breaking for ads to sell Coca-Cola or cerveza or chicken wings. I began to wish I was still cutting, because that intensifying burn in my forearms had turned into fiery veins of lava from thumbnails to elbows, and the pain sweat was spreading salt in my eyes, and the screaming wind was blowing my mandala away, and it was a woman crying, "Mija, mija," and the foreman said, "Immigration is here. There is nothing we can do." "Nuestra Senora!" The wing disjointer, who had my old job, and the wing cutter next to him, bolted past me, and I bolted in their wake. Up the stairs to the bathroom, past the bird bath wash-up, through the door to the AC unit, and out onto the sun-glaring roof, where we hid in shadows behind giant aluminum chimneys and vents, ripped off our slimy aprons and helmets, and like commandos peeking out and signaling, ran to the next vent, to the next, and raced all out for the edge of the roof, where my comrades leapt into space, and I followed. Landed, still running on a trailer. In the field below were ice agents with flak jackets and rifles, and beyond was a chain-link fence with a corner bent back in a dark wood. Off the trailer we landed and rolled to our feet as the ice agents closed in, grabbing first the cutter and then near the fence the wig disjointer, and I dove to the bent back corner and snagged the belt loop, but as with the chicken breast, one tug set me free. I tunneled through the thick underbrush to the edge of the woods, sprang up under some taller trees, and kicking through fallen twigs like someone wading through the shallows, ran on until my lungs were burning, but not my forearm. And seeing the sunlight cracking through branches, I burst out into a cornfield, turned sharply down a long row where I was lacerated by a gauntlet of leaves, and finally came upon a small clearing where someone had planted a merry patch of marijuana. And there waiting for me was an old black man who carried a machete and said, "Amigo, do you speak English?" Well, let's get to the... Well, let's get to know Uncle Pops a little more. Uncle Pops on the human microbiome. Sparks a blunt, chokes, and speaks. For windows, I paint murky ultramarine, the sea that made us, and in the shadows of the sunlight, Africa that made us human. Life contaminated with life, not sterile like bowels scoured by antibiotics. Spiders for Babylon, man. They think it's shit. We're shit. That's why I have to grow and sell shit. I paint with pigments cavemen dug from dirty earth, and blue on cathedral walls with animal bones, umber, ochre, amber, brown and black as the darkness on the deep, where the sea's mother cells closed first into a globe and trapped some strange euglena from a random current, a crumb from God's table, a brother from another mother, the microbiome universal, begat the blessed bacteria of Africa, baptized on every continent from Eden's braided rivers and deposited in the delta of a woman's hair. There you nurse first at birth. There when you crazy sexy, you go down. Men's, women's breath, the emanation of skin and gland, the exhalation of the biomass, seduced delivery of a chromosomal love note. Hell, mother's milk feeds more the baby than the biome, more the biome than the baby. And biotas, in evolutionary trade, balance their zoology. Some decline, some multiply, and baby thrives. The darling of the lovers driven crazy by a trillion teensy, clinging, conjoined twins. Think you there's a doorless death between the sons of Adam and the vermin we cohabit with? Between our dreaming brains and dancing bodies? between the universe before begetting stars and what we be now begetting each other, venting with every thought a filament of fumes from the first spark. It's Firouz. No Beirut, Philistine. It has been suggested that it comes from the Arabic invocation of Allah or the oath Wallah by Allah. However, there is evident disagreement about this hypothesis. That's the Wiktionary discussion of the word Olay. A commotion one seat back across the aisle interrupts my latest exile on the tarmac at Charles de Gaulle. No Beirut, Philistine! 3 uniformed fleeks mash some guy yelling Arabic to his seats. No Beirut, Philistine! Yallah Habibi, what Papa would say, hurry up darling, but that's all I know of this tongue that is all heaving lungs, choking hearts and wailing souls. The ICE frowns me to my place, and now a lady in front kneels on her seat, yammering into her cellular to the play-by-play in Arabic and French, while the cops hump and the guy screams, "Oh shit," says the lady in English. "He says he has a bomb." Once, on a bench below Imbabura, we watched in safety as a bull slammed against the fence dividing us from head and horn, our olays proclaiming up the mountainside the greatness of the gods, when suddenly the wood rose atop his horns, his giant nostrils trailing an arc of silvery mucus, and we lifted from our seats to flee. So everyone on the plane lifts from their seats when they hear bomb. Mesdames et Messieurs, begins a pretty lady cop. And I ask the ICE, are we hostages? No, replies the lady with the cellular, who translates. This guy is from Palestine camps. Came in on this plane, and on this plane he go out. If he get off, he go under jurisprudence française. That makes sense. Takeoff takes 1 hour, but once aloft, his and my ICEs head back to business class. He eats his supper with resigned relish, pokes his screen for a movie. Hamoudi, he says, touching his breast. Jacobo, I say, and touch mine too. We trade our trades, trade stories, and trade our terms for home. Oh Allah, if only. Inshallah, God willing. In Ecuador, the clouds abide within Babura. Below this missile, they falter among some strangers' gods. Arrival at GTF Guantanamo. From phantom sleep, bats harass me with steel-winged moiré, the crosses of a cage of cages. At intervals, snagged in mesh, move orange shapes with beards. Beyond, a wall of nowhere, cactus, hills decomposing in colorless mirage. For sanity, I imagine the coral manillas that wrap my mother's wrists. Beware, Jacobo, the jaws of a hungry world, she said. Nuestra Senora, salve-me. My groin throbs with piss, but I've nothing but a shin-high pipe that slopes from cage to cage. I claw the wire, embed my face, whisper, "I'm your hand." His finger hushes me, then arcs down to something jutting from our mutual pipe. I begin to weep, not sure if for the kindness or the degradation. "Wait, Anna," I ask my only friends, who caricatures ooh and ah, Cuba. But suddenly, a 10-boot pile driver stomps our piece. Insect heads, black as ants, battering shields scream, comply, crashing the gate and hitting me with a ton of Yankee. Down I go. My limbs are theirs to levitate or bend me to a prayer or bullet to my brain. But as once I stood in a football field for a popular, watching the big bull pestered by some fool 10 meters away, and his big head swung out, black eyes targeting mine, and my legs turned to me in spite of all daring and ran me out of there. So now I flinch, and heavy hands heave my defiant face into the ground. Just wait till the guy who's got my balls finds out I've pissed myself. Ow! Allah give you strength, brother. Blindfolded, bound, delivered double time somewhere where I'm raised on shackles, just like the chickens I once unwinged and locked to a roof beam, toes scratching for a toe hold, shoulders unhinging, one tug, and I'll drop. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Very much. Thank you so much for coming, all of you. Appreciate it.